We are recording. Welcome to the Action Shooting Show, where we'll be talking about action shooting, all the different sports we participate in, and a lot of other people shoot. So, whether it be three gun, run and gun, USPSA, is there anything else you guys do that I didn't? That's kind of most of it.
And it's the gist of it for us.
So,
What about IDPA? Are we
Ooh.
gonna
do
do
you
that
do
too?
IDPA?
No, but I hear that's what the cool kids do.
Yeah.
We can always send
I left
Mark
that one
out
out
a tribute.
because I left that out because none of us do it, but we pretty much do most of the other popular sports, so that's kind of
We want to do PRS. Does that count?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm going to be doing some of that this summer, so we'll talk about that when we get more into that kind of stuff. So so that's kind of what the show will be about. We can all introduce ourselves, I guess, so you guys, anyone listening to this, may have an idea why they would care to listen to us. The answer is they probably don't. But who wants to start? Any of you guys want to start, or you want me to go?
I'll go ahead.
You're gonna start?
Okay. What you want me to start?
I can
All
start.
right.
Go.
I'll take that as a. All right. So I've been shooting competitively for probably 7 years now. Me and Mike actually. Well, we kind of started at the same time, but that was three gun. I started shooting an indoor pistol match like a year or two before that, and then that got kind of expensive being an indoor range, and then I got to shooting three gun and have mostly done that for the last 6-7 years, and then started running gun. Did one of the, I guess the first running gun here in east of the Mississippi. Gosh, what was that? 4 years ago? Does that sound right?
4 or 5.
4 or 5 years ago, and didn't really do much of that until this last year. So I did two more. Well, I did one 2 years ago, and then two last year. So I'm up to 4 of them, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of that this summer. And I've done a little bit of USPSA here and there, but not enough to really talk about. So, and then I already talked about going to get into some, hopefully get into some PRS this summer. So that's kind of me. You want to go, Mike? I guess next.
Yeah, sure. Mike Ford. I've been doing the competitive shooting now for about 6 years. Started in three gun, really enjoyed that. Went and did a running gun down at Rock Castle when that facility was still open, at the very first one east of the Mississippi, and kind of cut the bug there for running gun, and participated in everyone hosted at Rock Castle since then. And now that that facility's closed, have branched out, and I've done several at Bluegrass, Dead Zero, and a few other facilities, and really enjoyed that. Had some success there, and learned some really big lessons in the running gun. So I've done a couple of outlaw pistol matches. Would love to do some PRS stuff now, and some of the rimfire uh, competitions look interesting to me. So we'll see where it goes.
And I think it's important to mention Mike's the only one with trophies here from shooting. So he's successful at it. And me and Mark just try to chase after him as close as we can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my name is Mark Rudke. I've been doing competitive shooting for, again, about as long as these guys, 7 or 8 years. I started with USPSA, got into three gun after that. The same run and gun that these guys all did in Kentucky, and then I've done several more of those since then. Looking to do maybe try PRS, and yeah, just get better at this point. Quit being a mid packer for life.
Yeah. Well, if we're being honest, like most of the sport is mid-pack people, or would like to think they're mid-pack people, and there's like the 5% that are really, really like way above everybody else. Then there's that kind of like mid-pack, And then there's the people who are just, they don't care. They're just out there to have a good time, and they're probably never going to place anywhere close to 50%, but they don't care, right? I mean, does that seem pretty accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
So
Yep.
we're probably we're more serious, so we do practice, but I don't think any of us are out there trying to be the elite athlete in any of the sports. We're just trying to be better shooters, and I think like most people, we all got into it defensively. You know, we wanted to get better at whatever guns we were using, and that kind of led us to getting more into the sport as well.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, while we're all doing that, we're all still, concealing carriers and taking, quote unquote tactical courses or things, shoot house classes or things like that, just to get better at what we do.
Yep. I'd say that the courses carry over into some of the competitive shooting side, and the competitive shooting definitely carries over into the more tactical classes. Seen some real nice advantages that the competitive shooting experience gave me in those classes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not an amazing shot, but I've never shot in a defensive class where I wasn't one of the top, 3 or 4 people. Just because of the nature of how much shooting we get to do, more than maybe the average concealing carrier.
Yep. And hopefully we'll continue to, as long as we can find primers.
Yeah. All right, so that's kind of our quick introduction. I guess, have any of you guys been doing any shooting lately? Or doing anything gun related?
For me, it's been a little bit of dry fire, tinkering with equipment over November, December. Shot a night match down at Bluegrass Sportsman's League with Ryan, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was rifle, pistol in the dark, all CQB type stuff, but it was a good time. And then some local 3-gun fun match, just to bring crazy random things out of the safe and punch some holes in some paper with some big guns, odd guns, old guns. But yeah, that's really been the shooting for me. It's been mostly just going in through and rebuilding rifles, gauging them, and prepping gear for this upcoming year. Doing some reloading.
How about you, Mark?
I did some night vision shooting. We're in January now. About a month ago, did some night vision shooting, just shooting pistol, rifle, up close at some steel, just mostly pretending to be a cool guy kind of stuff. And then I did some pheasant hunting in November, which was probably the closest hunting you can do to 3-gun, because we were at a game farm and the birds were just like so crazy. We limited out in like an hour, so that, I mean, you can't shoot faster than that. So, and I did bring my competition shotgun with, even though I took the extended tube off, and I didn't bring any shell caddies or anything, but I was looking pretty Gucci with my milled out loading port and stuff like that.
Next time, will you bring the shell caddies?
Yes. Yeah, next time.
Yeah, I know it sounds funny, but now I think of when I was a waterfowl hunting guide in my late teens. I definitely think doing some dual loads would have been handy with a plugged gun.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, you could toss 2 in pretty quick. Yeah, so you'll find me and Mike probably shoot a lot of the same matches because we're close and we travel to matches together. But I shot the same night match Mike was talking about. Was trying out a new gun that I built that kind of had some hiccups, so I didn't quite shoot that match as well as I would have liked. But what else? He mentioned I run the local 3-gun match. He mentioned they didn't call it by name, but my Safe Queen match. It's a format I don't know that I'd ever heard of anyone doing it before. I kind of had the idea for it, but I'm sure it has been. But the whole match is set up for low round count, mostly paper, and it's set up for people to bring out all the kind of safe guns that you can't regularly use in competition. So we had a lot of lever guns, a lot of just weird guns that, low round count guns. The M1 Grange or some of your military surplus stuff. I know a guy in our squad was shooting like a Swiss straight pull rifle. Then, smaller pistols and just all kinds of stuff. Some single shots. One guy in the other squad had a 375 Ruger. I had one stage that was out to like 80 or 90 yards where just kind of a sacrificial piece of steel. So we had like a single shot, Ruger #1 shooting that. I had my elephant gun, Martini Henry action, kind of sporterized bastard of a rifle. And, me and Mike brought out a lot of lever guns. So I had a Savage 99 and 308 and 4570 and just a lot of goofy stuff, revolvers, that kind of thing. So that's kind of most of the match. Been tinkering like Mike has. I've got a 6.5 Creedmoor gas gun that I'm currently building, and just kind of got it all together and getting it tuned and zeroed and working through the little bugs, that you have when you build rifles like that. So that's hopefully what I'll be doing some PRS with. So, yeah.
Gas gun gamer.
Yeah, it's probably the whole time I was building it, and we're in a group chat together. I told these guys if I was smart, I would be building something else. But I had won a Aero M5 lower at the Legion run and gun in September or August.
Mm-hmm.
September. So I won a lower, and I figured I should probably build a gun. And if you're building a full grain AR, 6.5 is kind of the ideal cartridge right now. I think there's not a ton of reason to build a 308 anymore. So we'll try some PRS with that. It's probably not what you should have, but I'll learn something. So Mike's got all the good gamer guns there. So
not for PRS.
If you got that chassis gun going, that's a PRS gun.
Oh, that's not some hot rod 6mm though. That's good old 6.5.
It would work. It would get the job done.
Well, at our skill level too. At our skill level, it's not the guns that are going to be the limiting factor.
No. That's why I figured a gas gun would be. It's still kind of familiar with what I am already shooting. So
yeah.
Trying to pick up a bolt gun and learn a new sport. I'd probably learn, but. And I don't know. It's just light enough. It may get out into a run and gun if I can find a good reason to talk myself into it. So
yeah, if I was smart, I would sell those two Bolt 6.5s and move into a gas one, since that's what I'm familiar with and most comfortable with.
Yeah, we're not. If we were smart, we wouldn't be spending so much money on guns, though. So
yeah, that's true.
All right, so here we got. I guess next part I was thinking we talk about is upcoming matches, training for matches, anything we got planned and in the works. So what do you guys got on the horizon?
I can lead off. So I know Ryan and I are looking forward to hearing an announcement possibly for another night match at Bluegrass. So that would be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing Heartbreak at Bluegrass, which is one of my favorite running guns, in February. And that's they say it's a 10K, but normally it's a little bit more than that. And due to the temperature and terrain, it's definitely one of the more challenging running guns. but draws a great crowd of competitors and offers a lot of opportunity for growth and learning. So I know that Mark has gone down there with me in the past and enjoyed that, and Ryan's going to get his introduction by fire later. So,
so let's talk about Heartbreak for a second. So, for someone like me who hasn't shot it before, and maybe people listening to this, kind of describe some things that set it apart, that match, from some of the other running guns like or I don't know, does Matt's match have a name? His March one?
no, I think after the first association with Three Gun for Vets, after that it was just kind of its own deal.
Yeah.
But
so what separates that from that or Zombie or the other ones?
Heartbreak is definitely one of the more physical. They run several classes, and they've last year introduced some more, even more difficult classes where you're carrying weight and you're doing extra things on the course. So, like, say Heartbreak Plus, when you show up, instead of having to drag, maybe one cinder block, you're going to have to do dragging 2 cinder blocks, or doing tire flips, or they'll have you doing burpees right before you shoot. Heartbreak, because where it's at in Kentucky, you've got a lot of rolling hills across the course, so you have to be in decent physical shape. It's a hiking gun for most of the people, and even the elite competitors. It's a run/hike. There's probably only a handful of people that could run the entire course. The other thing that sets Heartbreak apart is they've got a full-blown obstacle course that you'll hit about 2/3, almost 3/4 of the way through your 10K, and they'll have you climbing over walls, doing drags, low crawls through mud. It's a challenging course. I really enjoy it. The shooting obstacles normally are the stages, I should say, are a nice balance between being able to run your gun under stress and being tired, and working those fundamentals, and still being fun/tactical. They had a false mortar tube with mortars that we had to drop before we can engage last year, and they'll throw stuff out there just to give shooters an interesting experience. A lot of cool things. One stage had a height over bore, where you needed to shoot something extremely close range and shoot it a lot. And if you slacked off with your height over bore, you're going to catch a penalty. So cool stages, cool terrain and course, and even better people.
Well, it sounds like there may be something similar, because I know Alan was alluding to with the long range. He said it only goes out to 300 at max, but he said that you really better know your zero.
Yeah, running gun is one of those events where even when you're pushing to 200 or 300 yards, you'll see a lot of competitors time out, and they might know they're dope to 100 or 200 yards. Not all the clubs have availability to push to 300 yards, and then you go ahead and do 5 miles, and then come up and do some sort of activity where you're carrying something or jacking with your heart rate, and then try to make several hits at 100, 200, 300 yards, and even some pretty experienced shooters time out. It's not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, just a couple things to add to that. One, I'm not in good shape. I'm not one of those elite athletes or even mediocre athletes. I'm at the bottom when it comes to athleticism. But Heartbreak was the physically hardest thing I've ever done. It was very, very difficult. Rolling hills is a funny way to put it, because there's rolling hills in a portion of it, and then you have to go down to the bottom of a river. What river is that right there? I don't know. You go down to it's beautiful river bottom with just sheer cliffs across the river, and you walk on there, and then you realize you have to climb out, and that part is just brutal. It's like Mike said, it's the truest obstacle course of any running I've done. Usually obstacles in run and guns are fairly trivial, like climbing A-frame. A-frames, I mean, they're a thing to climb, but it's not hard by any. And these obstacles, other than like Tiger's Wall, that's physically hard. But like this stuff, you have a wall, the belly crawl, the heavy stuff, the stupid tires that you have you had to belly crawl through semi-tires that were buried vertically in the ground. And it seems so trivial when you read it. They're like, oh, you're going to climb through some tires. That was so, it sapped your energy like crazy. I could not believe it. And so, yeah, the physical difficulty of Heartbreak is what really set it apart. The shooting, I didn't think was particularly difficult other than being exhausted trying to shoot. There was a couple of things, even the shooting, they added in physical things. So the year that I did it, you had to pick up a cinder block, move to a spot, shoot a target, move the cinder block back, shoot a target, move it back and forth over and over again. Another stage, you had to pick up 2 cinder blocks and carry them, put them down, then start the stage. So just little things like that. I think you also had to do tire flips. You had to flip a big tire. You had to carry a cinder block while shooting on one of the stages. So just really physically demanding, more so than any other match I've done. So.
Well, that to me is one of the interesting things about run and gun is when you compare shooting challenges on a run and gun stage to a 3-gun stage, typically the shooting challenge is way easier on a run and gun stage, but where the challenge comes is the fact that you've been running or hiking or lifting or doing things. And so it's a challenge. Like if you tried to do some of the things we did in 3-gun halfway through a run and gun stage, 95% of the course would probably time out because, it's a different sport. But Mark's talking about, Mark still does fairly decent at running guns because the ones we have done, and there's not a universal rule set, but all the ones I've done, I'm pretty sure these guys, they weight it 50-50. 50% of your score is run time, 50% is your shooting time. So, Legion this year, I ended up 13th, I think, in the 5K, and most of that was my shoot. I shot better. I kind of did a little different strategy before. I'd run way harder, and I was not in good shape, so I had a poor run time and then a really poor shoot time because I was so winded. I kind of dialed back my running and did better in shooting, which helped propel me, but my run time was definitely worked against me. So there's a lot of strategy in that, balancing it out. And I mean, the top guys can run and shoot. So really, if you want to be the top, that's the way you got to do it. But kind of for that middle of the pack, you can kind of play to your strengths a little bit. And really somewhat for the top guys too, There's guys out there we know that are jackrabbits that are probably going to smoke the run time. So if you're not that guy, sometimes it's worth dialing back just a little bit on your run so you can shoot better.
Yeah, run and gun is a sport about balance. And it's not necessarily like 3-gun where you need to be balanced across 3 guns. Running gun is a mental balance of being able to do the physical part and still mentally be on top of your game for that, and then roll into a shooting stage and with very, very little prep, no walkthrough, be able to glance at it and figure out the fastest way to attack it and then mentally execute that. And that's one of the things I appreciate about it is it's hard to game. You can do a little bit of gaming with some equipment and some training, but really when it's match day, you're either going to be able to pull it off or you're not. There's not a whole lot that you can game the day of to get a real advantage on your peers. It's all that prep work beforehand.
Yeah, well, I'd say somewhat. I mean, I noticed the more I shoot these, like I said earlier, I've done 4 matches now. The more I shoot them, I do get a little bit better idea of what's expected on a course of fire. And there's some of that, I don't know if it's gaming, but there's times where it's like if you weren't specifically told you couldn't, you probably can. And so there's some stuff like that where the more you do it, you get a little bit more familiar with what's accepted and what's not. Does that make sense?
But I don't know how much of gaming that is versus being able to diagnose on the fly. Is now you're able to think about that past experience, and since that worked last time, or you didn't have a specific directive not to do it, now you can pull from that experience and look at this stage that you've never shot before and pull that experience in.
Yeah.
So it's not really an equipment or some sort of crazy game. It's just utilizing your skill.
Yeah, and I don't know if gaming's the way, necessarily the best phrase, but they're definitely, the more I shoot them, the more I get comfortable with understanding how a stage works in run and gun, because it is different from the other sports in that way. So
some of it too, though, I think is like kind of a feel. Like there's some sort of unspoken. It just has a different feel when you do a run and gun stage. So if you come to a run and gun stage, first of all, everyone, not to disparage anyone in the run and gun community, tends to be more tactically minded. And so they set up these stages with like, hey, you're in a tactical situation, shoot these pistol thing, then shoot these rifle. And so you get the idea like, hey, I should maybe be cautious. I should, stand behind a barrel so that I have cover. You don't have to. Like Ryan said, they didn't tell you had to. In some cases they might. But if you attack it the same way you'd attack a 3-gun stage or a USPSA stage, even more, you would have a completely different mindset. And so these people that don't have a background in 3-gun or USPSA, they come up to it and they get kind of the feel like, all right, this is a war zone. Draw your pistol and defend your life. Where I walk up to it and I'm thinking, all right, there is my mark. I'm going to get there as fast as I can and shoot every spot. I want to get in that sweet spot where I can see all the targets. Because the match director at a run and gun isn't going to go through the stage and think like where the gamer's going to stand. Like helping Ryan with set up a 3-gun match. Half the day on Saturday before the match is where are they going to stand and blast everything? How can we put barricades here? And run and gun's not necessarily at that level of the stages because most people aren't thinking of it that way. And so that advantage that you're kind of talking about, where you maybe don't have to be the best runner, but if you're a really good shooter, at least that's my case. I'm carrying myself with my shooting, and I'm super slow with the running. But it's that attacking the stage. It's all right. This is just USPSA. Find the sweet spot. Shoot as many as you can. Reload when you're moving. Don't go to slide lock. Little things like that you wouldn't do if you were thinking like, all right, 1991 Sarajevo. What are we gonna do?
Well, there's some of that, but like a lot of the stages, the way they're designed, like kind of what Mike said. I don't know that there's much to be gained from a quote unquote gaming. Yeah, I mean, moving quick place to place is always better, but yeah, I don't know that it's usually they're pretty linear. It's just do it in this order and get your hits as quick as you can, and you'll do well on the stage.
And one thing is, run and gun is evolving to the point where match directors have been doing it long enough that they're starting to develop their own flavor. So, like Heartbreak, the match directors there shoot some 3-gun, they shoot some USPSA. So their stages might have a little bit more of an aspect of, I got to hit this port on this wall, this port on this wall, and this port, to get those targets and get that engagement quickly. Like they'll throw some VTAC boards and stuff, and you'll see guys with the 3-gun and the USPSA background, they'll attack those VTAC boards hard. They'll get their hits and they'll move through. They'll get from, behind one to the other. They'll hit the reload, moving between the boards. You'll get to Legion, which is more of a military memorial theme match, and there'll be a lot more mental things that, it's not that you have to hit your positions perfectly, but you're going to have to remember 3-letter abbreviations, 4 numbers, and move through. And, normally we would sit and think like, man, my, 7-year-old kid or whatever might be able to figure this out and do this easy. But you take a bunch of adults and put them a couple miles in with some 180 beats per minute heart rate, and they can't remember the word cat or dog,
Yeah.
or a simple 3-letter cipher that the answer's like been given to you, and that's okay. It's fun to hit those different matches to have that different flavor, and like I think we all really enjoy the match with Tiger Schultz, the Run for Your Life zombie running guns that he does, and his really don't have something that you can hit this position super hard. His is a lot of marksmanship, and so that's a fun match that we all really enjoyed this year because there was a lot of looking for targets hidden in the woods and things where it was an observation thing. Yeah, being able to shoot fast and draw on experience from other disciplines like USPSA or 3-gun certainly didn't hurt anyone in terms of being able to employ their weapons quickly and efficiently. But we were going to have to hunt for those targets up in the woods just like anyone else. Or, so different matches, different directors, different flavor. You'll have some different strengths and weaknesses for everyone. But I think all of us here in this chat appreciate running gun because we all started with kind of a mindset of I want to get better for defensive. And, 3-gun has some skills for that. But in a real world application, running gun kind of fits a unique slot because you might be running with your small child and then have to make a 10-yard offhand pistol shot. Or, those little things, you really don't know what to expect. And can you do it when you're physically gassed and you didn't have a chance to pre-plan this? I think that's part of why it also draws a little bit more of the tactical crowd and some of the LARPers. But, it's a cool place to be able to break out some cry or maybe a first spear plate carrier and run that because it does fit the equipment bill.
Well, and me and Mike have talked about this other places, offline. If you notice most of the people who do really well at running guns, they all shoot other disciplines, whether it's 3-gun or USPSA or, because the PRS stuff, because running gun, if all you did was running gun matches and then you kind of practiced outside of it, a lot of these skills it's kind of hard to practice if you're not on the clock somewhere. And we kind of spiraled off here. Let's get back. So Heartbreak, because this will be my first time doing it. Training wise, or I guess if someone's doing it for the first time, you've kind of talked about the flavor of it. But what's some things they could practice or do, or if there's maybe even gear maybe that you want to bring that's a little bit different, or obviously you don't know what this year's match is going to be like, but done it, maybe what's some things to look at training. And this is a lot for me because I want to make sure I'm prepared for the match.
Mark, you want to take this, then I'll follow up on what you missed?
Yeah, well, so I can't think of any special gear that stands out to me, but physically you got to be in the best shape that you can. There's no right level of fitness. When I did it, I think it was more like 13K. So you want to be going at least a full mile beyond 6 miles. So I'd say, but anytime,
Did you get lost?
I did get lost, but that was still included in the taking that part out.
Okay. So you did 15K.
Which is going back to why I got lost. It wasn't necessarily that the trail was marked poorly. The part I got lost was after you climb that terrible hill, and I'm just sucking wind, walking in the woods. I had committed my life to Jesus at that point, and I knew that I was never gonna do anything wrong again. And I was just walking through the woods, and then I got up to a trail that was at a T, and there was never supposed to be any decision making in trails. It was always walk forward. And so I knew I had gone astray. And so But yeah, it's that mental fatigue. It's that fog where you just can't think, hey, this, stay on top of it. Look for the next marker. You don't go ahead until you find the next marker. So that kind of thing. But Mike can talk more about the actual physical training. But I think one of the things that I recommend is if you have a race like a 5K, a 10K, you're always actually training it up farther than what the actual race is. So if you were training for 10K and you're training a little extra thinking, oh, it's a 10K, you want to make that little extra a little extra because heartbreak's already going to be over 10K.
Yeah.
So I'd keep that in mind.
I think most run and guns, they claim whatever distance it is, and we can all assume that it's going to be, by the nature of like laying out a course through woods, like it's probably going to be a quarter mile, half mile, mile further. It's just kind of the nature of how you would, it's the woods.
Right. And this is another thing that Mike could talk about more is, and I think you kind of realized it on Zombie this year, was nutrition. Those little goo packs or, like gummies, things like that gives you that little boost of sugar after 2 miles at 4 miles kind of thing. That really helped me. You climb that hill and you're just sapped. Having just like a little bit of sugar or caffeine or whatever it is in those packages to get you going again really helps. That was the first year I'd used those. I used them again at Zombie, and they help too. So I definitely recommend those.
A single granola bar per person would not be what I would call ideal, just from personal Zombie experience now.
Right. It's so dry too. It's like, not enough.
No. It was not enough.
Yeah. I think one thing I would say about Heartbreak is gloves would make sense to me. I want to say, because you're carrying cinder blocks a lot. And so if you, depending on how much you work with your hands, if your hands are tough, you're probably fine. But if you're carrying cinder blocks a lot, I think that's a good place to wear gloves. And then if you're planning on wearing gloves, plan on shooting with gloves on beforehand. Like get used to that. Because I've seen or heard of people NDing because they didn't realize how much glove they have in a trigger guard. I think for Heartbreak, I think I was wearing a Camelback, and I think I had Velcroed my gloves onto the strap of my Camelback, and then totally forgot about them. They dangled there like the entire match. I don't think I ever put them on. But that would be one piece of equipment I think would probably be worthwhile. Depending on how much
it's February, so who knows how cold or warm it's going to be. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you may have gloves on anyways. That makes sense. And then shooting wise, nothing really stood out to me there other than there was some left-handed pistol shooting, which there's nobody that is listening to this or will ever listen to this that could not use more left-handed pistol practice. Mm-hmm. So that's just like an evergreen statement.
Yeah.
You can always practice more left-handed pistol. I know a good one. And this is another classic example, but something to cover the end of your barrel. If you know you're going to be belly crawling and in the mud, you're always trying to keep the end of your barrel out of the mud. And I did the whole belly crawl. Everything was fine. And Mike had given me the little finger wrap things, like essentially finger condoms to put over the barrel. I just shot a stage. I didn't put a new one on. And I was going through those stupid tires. And I pushed my rifle through and just straight into the mud. And my rifle was, I think that rifle has a muzzle brake versus a flash hider. So the baffles kind of stopped the mud, and I was able to take a piece of switchgrass and kind of push out the mud, and it was fine. Maybe that first round out of the rifle, I might have kind of winched off to the side there a little, but
little flyer.
Something to think about there. Whenever you're going to be around mud, or if it's raining, something to think about there. But yeah, those are the things that stand out to me about. And then hills, practicing hills. It wasn't for Heartbreak. I learned this lesson before Heartbreak, but the first run and gun we did, I think I did all my training on a treadmill because it was during the winter or whatever, and I never put any incline on the treadmill. And I was like, I'm doing 5Ks. I'm crushing them on the treadmill. This is awesome. And then we get out to Rockcastle, and it's like, what are these hills? And they just ate my breakfast. So do hills if you can. Those that's what stands out to me right now. Mike will probably remind me of something else.
All right. Well, I'll kind of start and just touch on the physical fitness prep. There's no time like today to start practicing and getting your physical fitness stuff squared away. Most of what you're playing with in the run and gun realm is cardio and being able to just maintain some semblance of a consistent pace without your heart rate going through the roof. And I know a lot of us that try to do it fairly competitively do a fair amount of heart rate monitoring and training so we know about where we are at a given pace, and then we can kind of understand where we're going to meet our lactate threshold and things like that. So for some of the training that I do, I try to do a fairly consistent weekly run, and then just doing a lot of full body weight stuff such as burpees, squats, push-ups. Just the general calisthenics are a really good place to start. If you want to throw some weight in, then doing some farmer carry up and down stairs, some like weighted squats, weighted step ups, or lunges. A lot of those are a good place to go. Run and gun, you do use a fair amount of upper body, but it's mostly your legs and core. And if you're doing any of the weight class game, it's legs and core hardcore. A lot of guys that can come out and crush it are guys that have a background in military or rucking or some sort of adventure stuff where they're actually doing some pretty hardcore backpacking for days on end with weight. So just developing a good strategy to gain some strength, gain some endurance, it's a good place to go. And I don't do a whole lot with the supplement game. If I get into a pretty heavy workout or something, I might do a little protein or electrolytes or some complex like amino acid type stuff, but I don't really do a whole lot. It's more for some pretty strenuous training. The gear selection for me is pretty similar for rifle is what you'd see in like 3-gun or some of the other rifle gun games, kind of a recce type rifle, 16-inch barrel, low power variable scope, something that I'm very familiar with and spent a lot of time. I'm glad Mark brought up the muzzle brake on run and gun rifles. I am a big proponent of using a multi-chamber brake. So something like the JP or Lantac Dragon, or if you got a suppressor like Dead Air Chemo. And the reason is I've seen a lot of rifles go muzzle first into mud. And the easiest ones to clean that I have not seen mud go up the barrel have been ones with chambered muzzle brakes. The ones with the flash hiders is bad. You pretty much always end up having to push something down the bore. So like finger cots, little things that go over the barrels. I've made plugs for magazine wells out of duct tape that are easy to rip off once I've gotten through a mud stage before. Just little things. Run and gun, pistol-wise, most of the time, like Glock, M&P, something like that will work really well. Any type of duty handgun. You'll see some guys really go all out, and you'll see an occasional 2011 or a CZ that's been Cajunized out on the course. But I don't really feel like run and gun is where you're going to benefit from that 3-pound pistol trigger.
What about
maybe.
What about a 3-pound pistol?
I wouldn't want to carry that.
My Rock Island's been through 3 running guns, or 2 running guns now, so.
Yeah, the kind of going back into the quick gear dive is you can get away with using like your 3-gun belt setup or a battle belt and a Camelback. A lot of the best competitors you'll see running like a micro chest rig, like a Haley or a Spiritus. something lightweight that just holds enough ammo to get them through the course and move some of the weight off their hips. You really don't want to run out of water, so I'm normally willing to throw in an extra 16 ounces, more than I think I need. And this is where training comes into play. If you're out and you're training and you know about what you need to go through a mileage at a given pace and how much water you're going to go through, you're not going to carry a whole lot more than you need when you're actually out on the course. It's a lot like 3-gun when we tell people don't go and spend a whole bunch of money for your very first match. Talk to the guys on the Facebook groups or the forums. You're probably going to be able to show up, and as long as you brought ammo, you could actually do the course. Most of us are squared away to be able to help 1, 2, maybe 3 shooters besides ourselves get through a course.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I've done 4 of them now, and I just now ordered my first chest rig because I've either borrowed chest rigs or I've done 2 of them with no chest rig, just a 3-gun belt and a backpack, and did reasonably well at them, better than a lot of people with much nicer kit, like my kit wasn't pulling mags out of a backpack or spare ammo out of a backpack between stages wasn't what cost me time, in my match. So yeah, and then we're, I guess, keeping on. So this is all good general running gun advice. So keeping on like the Heartbreak. So it's still just make good cardio is kind of your. Is that kind of boiled down to?
Yep, good cardio and having the ability to push on a little bit farther than what you think you'll need. And that's a huge part of the mental game. Is I've seen guys that are in better physical fitness than me, and they'll die out with maybe only a couple miles left to go. And so having that kind of mental fortitude to keep going and keep pushing, once you cross the finish line and you submit your time, then you can pass out in the parking lot.
Yeah. So it sounds like a little bit gear wise. Maybe I'm reading into this, but with like obstacles and different things, and you mentioned like the micro chest rigs. I'm guessing keeping, not letting your gear and everything get too bulky. I guess more streamlined is probably advantageous at Heartbreak more than maybe some other ones. Does that sound about right?
I think that you'll get penalized more at Heartbreak or like someplace like Legion for having a bunch of ill-fitted equipment and stuff just hanging off, flopping around on you. When you're going over the walls and you're 12 feet in the air, do you want 3 magazines deep flopping around on your chest for your rifle? So keeping things is, fairly lightweight and compressed to you. If that means you've got your spare rifle mags in your Camelback, and so you don't have a whole bunch on your chest, that's fine. If you can, afford a good micro chest rig, that's great. You don't have to get caught up in the gear race, though, to be super competitive at running gun.
But I guess if you have the choice for Heartbreak, maybe go a little bit more svelte on everything, so you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Heartbreak's one of those that you also have to really balance your clothing well. I was really fortunate where I grew up spending a lot of time outdoors. Dad was a park ranger, former military guy. So I was outside through my childhood and my teens, hunting, fishing, hiking, snowshoeing. And that really carried over well through running gun in the fact of I haven't gotten lost yet, knock on wood. And I really think that's from being observant. I'm very comfortable moving through the woods fairly quickly with my head on the swivel, looking for the next trail or sign. I'm not worried about having to watch every footstep to keep from tripping. And so that pays off nicely is being observant and then also understanding how I need to layer to stay warm. Because most of the running gun events that take place in spring, summer, and fall, your biggest concern is how to stay cool. And Heartbreak is a little bit different because February in Kentucky, you might be the first runner out in the morning and you might be sucking in, 13, 14 degree morning air and with a super heavy frost on the ground, ice on the water. But, by afternoon, you might be looking at 40s, 50s. So being able to.
Or you still may be looking at 14.
Right. And it might be the very first heartbreak they had. I think it snowed and they had sleet. And then we've had some where you could have probably run it in shorts. So understanding how to layer your clothing, and then I tend to run weight classes because I'm not very smart, and so I'll take advantage of needing to have that extra weight in a backpack where I'll run with like an Under Armour Cold Gear top and bottom, lightweight, quick drying nylon pants, like a wool blend boot sock, and then a combat top. And then if I'm stuck at a stage where I might have to wait to shoot, and I might be there for 15, 20, 30 minutes where I'm going to start to cool down and lose my core temp and get some cold muscles, then before I start my wait time, I can pull out that hoodie, throw it on, and the benefits of not getting chilled outweigh the time that it takes to put it. Or I know some guys they'll carry a space, like the little aluminum tinfoil ones, things that you get for like survival, sear type stuff. The same idea.
Brian, I'm starting to lose Mike.
Yeah, I am too.
He's getting real choppy. We're at 54 minutes right now.
Yeah. Mike, you're breaking up real bad.
I think they were pretty hit the one and done for it. All right, I'm just not sure why. Nothing's changed here.
Okay. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good talk about like heartbreak. I guess Mark, you got anything going on here? You're preparing for, or any plans for shooting here in the near future?
No, it's winter in Minnesota, so I'm waiting for the USPSA and 3-gun season to start up again. I don't have anything else scheduled right now, so.
All right. Yeah, I'm doing heartbreak as we've already said, and so, and I kind of wanted a lot of people to hear this. Me and Mike have talked about this. I've been training. I probably started right after Zombie. Started training for heartbreak. So I've been doing kind of a weighted ruck program. Kind of building up. Like was it Friday, New Year's Day? I went out and did 6 miles with 40 pounds and up and down, trails like the local hiking trails near me, and kind of keeping at it a little bit faster of a pace. So that's kind of been getting my cardio up for that. And then if I'm not rucking, I'm running. And me and Mike go out for rucks sometimes at a local trail system. So that's kind of my big thing. I've done well with the shooting portion, so raising my level of physical fitness is good for just general health because, I'm 46 now, so 36.
Wow.
I didn't need to add 10 years to that. 36, and yeah, it's getting late in the day. But I'm 36, so I'm not exactly young, and these things need to. There's certainly much older competitors than me, but there's also a lot of guys that are 10, 15 years younger than me that I would like to try to keep up with. So, so that's kind of my main preparation, and I'll be doing some shooting here as it gets a little bit closer. The Ohio weather hasn't exactly been real cooperative lately. We've had a lot of rain and snow, and all the ranges are mud. And obviously, unlike everyone else, I've got some ammo stored up, but I don't exactly have it stacked to the ceiling, so I'm gonna have to conserve what I shoot leading up to this. So what's that?
I was gonna say Miamisburg just is restarting their league now, their Monday night league. So you can go shoot USPSA there.
Yeah, I did see that. I don't know that I'll have the ammo or the want to shoot indoor USPSA, but I've got some ideas for some training for outdoor kind of low round count stuff to prepare for this heartbreak. So maybe we'll talk about it in another episode. Some of the ideas. Maybe me and Mike can get out and do a little shooting and see how beneficial it is. But yeah, we're running on the 54 minutes of recording, which is probably long enough. Anyone have anything they want to talk about in closing?
No, I think that we'll enjoy continuing to do these in the future. And I know Running Gun kind of took over this particular episode, but we'll maybe try to do a little more specific stuff. I can dig out and do a little more of an intro to maybe the gear and things for Running Gun. And we can do a little more of a 3-gun centric, and we'll kind of break it out a little bit differently.
That's what I was thinking, kind of over time, as it makes sense, but talk about the different sports. And because, having Mark's the USPSA shooter out of this, so he'll have to kind of carry the weight on that. But all three of us have done these other sports enough to kind of have a pretty squared away idea of what it takes to get into it. And we're not real gear crazy people, so while we may give some recommendations, most of all these sports is just find some place that does it, talk to people that do it, and get out and do it. You don't need, a whole lot to get started. But having said that, when, people start getting into it, they start asking questions, and it may give people an idea what they're at least seeing when they go out. Because when I started Running Gun, I knew zero about chest rigs. I mean, I've done 4. Like I said, I just ordered my first one, and I had to do a bunch of reading online and ask Mike 1,000 questions because I've just never been interested in that. So I was like, they got all these chest things, and you throw a bunch of ammo on it, and there's a lot of that terminology and things. So maybe we'll go over that here in the future too.
Yeah, I think since all of us are blue collar Joes, it's not so much telling people that they have to have the same gear as we do. It's just trying to avoid some of the mistakes that we've all made.
Yeah.
And stretch that Hobby dollar out as far as we can get it.
Yeah, I'm sure Mike saved me a lot of money with the direction he pointed me in my first chest rig, because there's a lot of other ones that I think in the long run wouldn't have worked out. And borrowing one of his for Legion really gave me an idea of what it worked out really well, and I liked it. So it's like, okay, this is something that works for people, and it works for me, so I'm going to go that direction. So, anything you want to say, Mark, before we sign off?
No, yeah, I guess one of the two big things we talked about, two things we talked about. If you're even thinking about this Running Gun, never hurts to start fitness now.
Yep.
It never hurts to do dry fire and training. So
yep.
I hate to be the guy that says it and then doesn't do it, but I just want to get it out there so that you can't blame anybody. You knew you were supposed to. And I'll take that as my own personal motivation.
There you go. And that fitness helps in 3-gun and USPSA and probably even in IDPA. Maybe not in cowboy action because they don't really move all that far. But yeah, most of these sports, if your fitness will help you and everything. So, all right, we'll sign this off, and good talking with you guys.
Yep. See you next time.